Welcome to the weekly current affair class. Today we will be dealing with topics from society, ethics and as well as security. Our first topic will be moving away from population control. You must have read the Hindu article few days back with respect to the population control. We will be seeing what was the author talking about and what was the main points of that article. It will be helpful for your GS paper 1 society part. So coming back here, what does this article state? First of all, it provides you with some factual analysis. It states that there has been a release of report that is called as a World Population Prospect Report by the United Nations. This can also be helpful for your prelims exams. आप उसमें भी यूज़ कर सकते हैं इस चीज़ को. क्या पता यूपीएससी पूछ भी ले तो आपको पता होना चाहिए. आपके इंट्रोडक्शन वगैरह के लिए भी फैक्चुअल एनालिसिस है वो हमेशा हेल्पफुल रहता है इंट्रोडक्टरी पार्ट के लिए, या आपके कोई रिपोर्ट है तो वो कंक्लूजन पार्ट के लिए काफ़ी हेल्पफुल रहती है. तो ये क्या बता रहा है दैट यूनाइटेड नेशन पॉपुलेशन, उसने क्या बताया है दैट इंडिया विल बी द मोस्ट पॉपुलस कंट्री बाय 2023 और इंडिया विल रीच द फिगर ऑफ 150 crores by 2030 and 166 crores by 2050. This can also be substantiated with this image that we have. यहाँ पे देखिए आपका सरपासिंग का पॉइंट जो है रिपोर्ट ने मार्क कर रखा है दैट हेयर इंडिया विल इट इज़ प्रोजेक्टेड टू सरपास चाइना. और आपकी यहाँ पे देखिए 2050 है तो यहाँ पे पॉपुलेशन भी जो है 1.67 करोड़ बता रखी है. तो इसको हम क्या ये रिपोर्ट सही रहेगी या ये रिपोर्ट गलत रहेगी, दिस विल बी सीन व्हेन वी विल रिलीज द 2021 सेंसस. ऑब्वियसली द लेटेस्ट डाटा दैट वी हैव इज दैट इज फ्रॉम द 2011 सेंसस. व्हेन द सेंसस विल बी कंप्लीट एंड इट्स डाटा विल बी पब्लिश्ड, देन वी विल कम टू नो द एक्चुअल गवर्नमेंट फिगर्स ऑल्सो. बट व्हाट यूनाइटेड नेशंस हैज released in its report is that India will be reaching the figure of 150 crores by 2030, where it will be surpassing the China, and by 2050 the figure will reach up to 166 crores. और अब हमें इसको लिंक भी करना पड़ेगा. ऑब्वियसली आप सबने सोसाइटी में पढ़ रखी होगी द माल्थस थ्योरी, डेमोग्राफिक ट्रांजिशन थ्योरी. उसके हिसाब से इंडिया इज इन द थर्ड स्टेज ऑफ डेमोग्राफिक ट्रांजिशन, ओके, एंड एक्सपीरियंसिंग अ स्लो ग्रोथ रेट ड्यू टू द कॉन्स्टेंटली. ऐसा क्यों है आप लोगों को पता होगा कि ये बेसिकली वो ऐसे चलता है. और दिस इज़ अ पॉपुलेशन फिगर, दिस इज़ अ हेल्थ इंडिकेटर्स एंड ऑल दैट. ये आप लोगों को पता होगा. दिस इज़ द फर्स्ट स्टेज, ये आपकी सेकंड स्टेज है, ये आपकी थर्ड स्टेज है, ये आपकी फोर्थ स्टेज है. डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज आर द पार्ट ऑफ द फोर्थ स्टेज, ओके. और जो आपकी इंडिया जैसी कंट्रीज हैं दे आर बेसिकली द पार्ट ऑफ थर्ड स्टेज. और यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो कि बेसिकली जो पॉपुलेशन है इन चीज़ की वजह से इट विल बी डिक्रीजिंग, ग्रोथ होगी लेकिन उतनी नहीं है जितनी फर्स्ट स्टेज में है, ओके. ऐसा क्यों है इसकी उसने रीजंस भी प्रोवाइड कर रखे हैं. बिकॉज ऑफ द लो मोर्टेलिटी रेट एंड रैपिडली डिक्लाइनिंग फर्टिलिटी, ओके. आप लोगों ने अगर न्यूज़पेपर्स अच्छे से पढ़ रहे हो, आप लोग करंट अफेयर्स अच्छे से कवर कर रहे हो, पहली बात तो आपको ये पता होगा कि जो आपका इंडिया का टोटल फर्टिलिटी रेट है, कैपेसिटी ऑफ द वुमेन टू बियर children in her reproductive age, that has been decreased to 2.1, okay. and उसके साथ साथ आपकी हेल्थ इंडिकेटर्स बहुत ज़्यादा इंप्रूव हो चुके हैं, ओके. हेल्थ फैसिलिटीज़ में बहुत ज़्यादा इजाफा हुआ है. तो उसकी वजह से क्या हो रहा है, द मोर्टेलिटी रेट्स हैज़ बीन डिक्लाइनिंग. सो दैट इज़ वाई वी आर एक्सपीरियंसिंग द थर्ड स्टेज ऑफ डेमोग्राफिक ट्रांजिशन. एंड further the report states that India will house 17.5% of the world's population. दोबारा से फैक्ट्स के गो थ्रू चलते हैं. द वर्ल्ड पॉपुलेशन प्रोस्पेक्ट रिपोर्ट, इट इज़ रिलीज्ड बाय यूएन, ओके, एंड इट स्टेट्स दैट इंडिया विल बी द मोस्ट पॉपुलस कंट्री बाय 2023 एंड in 2030 India will be reaching the figures of 150 crores and by 2030 the figure will be 166 crores. This will basically make India house 17.5% of the world's population. And in the Malthus theory of demographic transition, we are in the third stage. we are experiencing a so slow growth rate. There is a population explosion, but the growth rate of population growth has decreased. Why? Because of low mortality and as well as the declining fertility levels. These are the factual analysis that the article talks about. Moving forward, so what does the article, the main theme of the article is why we should not try to impose the population control. You must have heard in the recent times the many approaches have been taken by the government. In fact, India was the first country to go for the population control, first country to go for a specific national policy, okay, that stated that we should go for a population control. Over the period of time, India has formulated various policies, various targeted approaches to control the population growth. And in recent time, recently in recent 2 to 3 years, you must have seen that the hype with respect to population control is very high. Many states have in fact went for the two-child policy. The author in this article states that that approach is not very effective and it is very difficult to implement this approach. That what we will be dealing with this point. Okay, so it states that I have already told you that India is the first country in the world to begin the population control program in 1952. Okay, over the period of time from 1950s to 60s, then 70s, then 1990s, we have launched various approaches to control the population growth, and more popular have been the, you must have studied in your society classes, clinical approach is there, Gandhian approach is there, cafeteria approach is there. Many committees have been formulated in this regard. We even went for the national population policies in the 1970s. Okay, but why these policies have not been able to control the population? See, the first mechanism is, you will have to see that we are a democratic country, okay, which focuses upon the individual rights. We want to go through the informed choices and the voluntary mechanisms. This approach or these approaches were particularly criticized in the period of emergency. Okay, you must have seen in the newspaper, still now the approach is criticized when the coercive approach, okay, or involuntary approach was followed. Individuals were forcibly sterilized and it was the mechanism to reduce the total fertility rate. Okay, the policy was very much criticized because it was coercive in nature, and that is why that policy could not be effective. It went through a period of 1 or 2 years, but due to very high criticism or because of its involuntary nature, the government had to abandon that policy. So that is why, due to these issues, family planning has long lost its primacy in the Indian policy discourse. See, another thing for family planning, it requires this education and literacy. You should have awareness with respect to reproductive measures, with respect to contraceptive techniques are there, sterilization techniques are there. Okay, how family planning also requires how much gap should be there between the two childs, at what stage the woman should get pregnant. So it, as you can see, that requires a lot of awareness on the part of the couples. So that thing is also missing in Indian society. In fact, today we are much more aware, but if you talk about the 70s or 80s era, our population was, majority of them was illiterate. So that is why the awareness push could also not be very effective on the part of the government. Government went through campaigns and ads, but family planning as such, still today you will see that the sterilization techniques, they carry a lot of taboo with respect to impotency issues. Okay, still now we have not been able to come out of that stereotypes. So these type of family planning type of thing, it requires a lot of awareness on the part of the citizens and a lot of push from the part of the government also. Due to both the issues, it has lost its push. Further moving forward, see, these approaches, they were basically, as I have already told you, they were focused upon sterilizations, how much number of sterilizations like they have been done, condom distributions, or your IUD insertion is there to reduce the basically pregnancy. Okay, the approach was very much targeted or focused upon the quantitative issues. The targets were given to the government officials that, see, we will, the performance of your department will be measured upon how much sterilizations you have done, how much basically contraceptive distributions your department has done. So that approach was not very effective because it was more focused upon the distribution and less focused upon bringing the behavioral change and attitudinal change among people. The targeted approach did not focus much upon creating awareness among people so that it can change their behavior. So that is why family planning has lost its push. Further, in 1994, India became a signatory to Cairo Conference on Population and Development, and it stated that in this approach, it stated that in conference that we will go for voluntary and informed choice. Okay, that we will not coerce our citizens anything with respect to coercive nature or involuntary choices will not be pushed from the government side. In fact, our focus will be to create the awareness among population so that they can themselves make a informed decision. Okay, so that is why the author here talks about that why family planning already the mechanisms to introduce the concept of family planning or the government techniques, government methodology to introduce the family planning has basically not bring the or brought out the desired fruits. So that is why it should not be followed. Second thing the author talks about is that is the punitive measures. See, most recently, as I have already told you, that you must have seen in these newspapers the implementation of the two-child policies by various state governments. At least 8 to 10 state governments have adopted this policy, like Assam is there, or Rajasthan is there, Gujarat is there, many other all states are also following the suits. So what this particular policy states that if an individual is having or is going for more than 2 childs, that individual will be punished. How that individual will be punished? Basically, you cannot run for elections, you cannot hold you will not be eligible for a government job, you will not be eligible for government schemes, you will not be eligible for another entitlements such as nutritional entitlements for pregnant women are there, cash incentive schemes for pregnant women are there. See, the problem here is that with respect to these punitive policies which focus on punishing the individuals, that if they cross a line, particular barrier line, then they will have to face the repercussions. The author here again bases his arguments in that basically it is not an voluntary and informed choice mechanism. Further, most of the individuals who are the beneficiaries of eligible schemes or who are going for nutritional entitlements for pregnant women, they belong to the lower section of the society, they will be belonging to the lower class or they will be belonging to the lower caste. That individuals are already vulnerable and marginalized section in the society. They are having low literacy rate, they do not have very much awareness with respect to their rights, with respect to their duties. Okay, they are not very much aware of the government schemes. So going for these kind of punitive measures will make them more marginalized and disadvantaged in the society. Whatever government welfare or the welfare schemes or they are eligible for, or whatever social welfare they are getting from the schemes, they will also become ineligible for that schemes. So further, you will see that the focus here in this particular policies rests upon the individuals. Okay, it shifts the focus from the government to the individual. As such, government should go for the awareness creation so that individuals can make an informed and voluntary choice. But what is happening here is it shifts the burden on individual, that if you go for a particular task, you are eligible. If you cross a line, then you are becoming ineligible for the government schemes. Further, as I have already stated that we are a democracy, every citizen in India has access to fundamental rights. Okay, you have access to human rights are there, but going for these kind of schemes, what happens is that you are snatching away their basic fundamental rights, their basic human rights to live within a democracy, such as you cannot run for elections. Okay, making eligible for the government, ineligible for the government schemes. It is a basically duty of the government to provide the welfare to the citizens who are already disadvantaged in the society. Further, the author talks about the Population Regulation Bill 2019. It also goes for the again punitive actions against people, such as making them if you are going for more than 2 children, then you will be devoid of all the government services. So however, again the author talks about this, that the burden of disqualification and disincentive is invariably borne by the already marginalized. Like I have told you, that already marginalized, such as women is there, okay, poor individual is there, disabled are there, okay, lower caste Dalits are there, okay. These individuals are already belonging to the marginalized section of the society, and shifting the burden on them to go for population control make them more marginalized. Like I have also highlighted here with respect to women, that how they will become more dismarginalized in society. Like government is already excluding them from the government schemes or running from the elections or the other nutritional requirements, but the family structure will also go through change. The individual who is having aspiration for such to fight the elections, to stand in the panchayat elections are there, or to stand in the municipal elections are there, to fulfill that aspiration in rural areas specifically. What is happening is that individuals are going for women abandonment, they are abandoning their women, okay. There is increased rate of divorce, so that basically we can be eligible to run for the elections. Individuals are abandoning their children specifically, and specifically if they are girl child, okay. We are already a patriarchal society where stereotype exists against the girl child. So to fulfill these kind of aspirations, the women section is already getting more marginalized already by the government, and then in the family by the male folk of the family, like going for the woman abandonment is there, divorce is there, then abandoning the girl child is there. Further, he states that at the Global Population Summit held in Nairobi in 2019, government has again reiterated that we will go for the voluntary and informed choice. So the basic mechanism, the thing here is that if you have already gone for the this Global Population Summit, you have declared that we will be going for a voluntary and informed choice, there is no reason to continue with the punitive action policies like 2-child policies are there, or the population regulation bill 2019 is there, which makes the individuals marginalized by disincentivizing them, such as from excluding them from the government schemes or other mechanisms that are there. So this is the point the individual talks about. Moving forward to next point, the next thing individual talks about is the aspirational revolution. Here the author talks about, see, we are not a country of 70s or 80s, we are a now modern country, okay, we are in the advanced developing stage. See, what is happening is when we became independent and over the period of next 30 to 40 years, agriculture was the dominant sector in our country. So he is making a sense here that in agriculture you need more labor power to work on the fields, and labor power in the basically market is expensive. So what individuals were going for, they were going for more number of children so that they can work in their farms and agricultural fields. See, but he states that we have gone through the change in the economic structure, okay. Now we are our 55% approximate contribution to GDP is by the service sector, and there are more opportunities here, okay. Education has what we say gain a more prominence. Even the poor individual is there, or the individual from the upper class, irrespective of class, caste, religion, every individual wants that their children should get the best education so that they can be skilled and can get a more what we say affordable, accessible and remunerative job. So but that is what he is stating is that parents have began to rethink about the family building strategies because of the change in the economic structure, our shift from agriculture to service sector, okay. So he states that smaller families are investing more in their children by sending them to private schools, coaching classes. You must have observed within your surroundings, within your family, relatives, anywhere, that individuals are going for less number of children so that they can provide the best facilities, best schoolings, best health facilities to the children, okay. So if less number of children will be there, the more the resources can be more adequately devoted to that children, and nobody will be left behind sitting at home like it used to happen in the earlier times. So what he states that it is not the aspiration for the parents themselves, but to make secure the future of their children, that they are going for the fertility decline levels. Okay, it is very hard to raise the children in today's time because of the inflation, because of the economic uncertainties and all that. So he states that basically the individuals are themselves going for the fertility decline, so that the resources that they have, they can be more adequately diverted to their only child or the basically two child at max. So further he states that what we need to do here is, government basically does not have to go for the punitive measures or the population control bill thing like these. What you have to do is, you have to ensure that the health and the family welfare system that is there is up to the challenge. Okay, what we are seeing a shift in this population structure. We are able to provide for contraceptive because desire is on the part of individuals. If individuals are want to go for the fertility decline, obviously there should be availability of the associated health reproductive system in the market, so that they have access to contraceptives, sexual and reproductive health services that allow basically individuals to have only as many as children as they want. Like contraceptives are there, sterilization techniques are there, condoms are there, they should be easily accessible, available, and further the taboo associated with respect to use of these techniques should be removed, so that why individuals can have only as much children as they want. Further he states that, again what I have already told you, that per capita income, what are you earning in today's time, what are the healthcare facilities available, what are the other basic necessities available in a particular area, in a particular state or a country where you live, are the more important considerations with respect to how much number of children you will be having. If the individual is very influential, having a very high per capita income, he or she may basically, the couple may decide that we will have more number of children because they can afford the resources, they can provide all the facilities to their children. Okay, similarly with respect to healthcare is there. Okay, so these kind of things become the important contributors. The basic premise here is that there is a drive on the part of individuals themselves to go for the lower fertility levels, but what the government should go for is, instead of punitive measures like we have seen forward, government should go on providing the reproductive health services, so that individuals can make again voluntary and informed choice. Moving forward to our next point, what does basically another thing the author highlights is with respect to development and poverty. Development here we will be seeing as a human development, a multi-dimensional concept, social, economic, political and human development, where all things are counted in. So he states that total fertility rate in India, I have already explained you the capacity of a woman to bear the number of children in her reproductive age. It has declined to 2.2 in 2017. Okay, it provides the factual data to substantiate his claim. He states that 7 states have recorded higher total fertility rates that are higher than the national average of 2.2. For example, there are Uttar Pradesh is there, then Bihar is there, Madhya Pradesh is there, Rajasthan is there, Assam is there, and Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand is there. The 7 states which are having the higher total fertility rates than the national average of 2.2. He states that basically these 7 states account for 45% of our total population in the 2011 census. So how does he link this with development? He states that the individuals basically, you will see that, for example, Bihar is there, it is having a highest total fertility rate of 3.2. He states that you will see the maximum percentage of illiterate women at 26.8% in Bihar, which is having a total high fertility rate, and literacy rate among women is 90.3% in Kerala. So what does the basic thing, what does this fact or data state, that is, if the level of development in a particular state is high, it is having high literacy rates, basic facilities are provided to all the people, okay, the concept of human development is well in place, you will see that the states, for example, he takes the social indicator of literacy here. The states which are having high literacy rates are having low fertility rates, whereas the states which are having what we say low literacy rate or are more, there are the number of people illiterate are more, they are having the high fertility rate, or in simpler terms they are contributing more to the total population. Like he states there that these 7 states contribute 45% of the total population in 2011 census. Then he further makes his points that if you will see that relatively well off states, for example, who are having more economic development, okay, who are more shifted towards the service sector, okay, where more economic opportunities are there, obviously what will happen is the social indicators, health and education indicators will also improve. You will see that they are demonstrating fertility rates that are lower than the national average. Our national average rate is 2.2. For example, Kerala is having 1.7, then Tamil Nadu is having 1.6, Telangana is having 1.7. You will see that their TFR rates are below what is required for population replacement. So how does he basically link fertility and development is, in nutshell, the states which are more economically well off, which are having more better social indicators, for example literacy, education, health facilities are there, you will see that the total fertility rates or their contribution to the total population of the country will be less, whereas the states who are lagging behind on economic and social indicators, education, health, economic development and all, you will be seeing that they are having the total fertility rate above the national average, and in simpler terms, so they are contributing more to the total population of the country. So what the thing he wants to say here is that instead of going for punitive measures like excluding people from the schemes like earlier stated, you should go for the development. If government will provide the development, then individual will themselves, because of the increase in literacy, economic parameters and education levels, individuals will themselves go for the decrease in the fertility level. So what is required is in respect what we say development in spite of going for the punitive measures. So this is basically what is all that was there with respect to the moving away from the population control article. Okay, so we will move on next to the our what we say ethics part. Just give me a second. So you must have seen also this news in the Indian Express explained page. Basically article was there with respect to the genomic surveillance. Okay, so I will state basically, but we will be, it is a topic of it can also be asked in the science and tech, but can also be asked with respect to the ethical point of view. Okay, what we will be dealing here is with the ethical perspective here. So first of all, what is genomic surveillance? See, genomic surveillance is the process of constantly monitoring pathogens and analyzing their genetic similarities and differences. So what this basic definition wants to state is that you can track the evolution, spread and outbreak of pathogens so that they do not become into the global pandemic, like we have seen in the case of infectious diseases like COVID, which was associated with bats, and then there is a rise of monkeypox now. So genomic surveillance is constantly monitoring the pathogens which can lead to what we say global pandemics like COVID and monkeypox. So the recent article that basically came here and various government bodies as well as the international bodies has argued for going for the genomic surveillance, so that basically public health what we say emergency can be contained. But what has happened is that various expert bodies have raised the ethical concerns regarding genomic surveillance with respect to how, with respect to the relationship between animals and individuals, how you will be treating individuals. That is the main part of our article also here, or that we will be discussing here. Ethical concerns, how ethical concerns will be raised with respect to a relationship between individuals and animals. Moving forward to ethical issues. See, our first ethical issue is with respect to the implications for the privacy and autonomy. What basically what is the ethical issue here? See, for example, I have given also the example so that it will make the things easier for you to understand. To going understand the process of SARS-CoV-2, the surveillance was done, okay, that how it can spread or how what other forms the pathogens can take. The analysis was done through the wastewater for the presence of virus. No doubt it offered the opportunity to detect the virus, that where it can spread, but what the ethical issue is there, that from where the particular place, for example, we will explain the point with this example only. For example, you have to go for the wastewater analysis. Obviously you will be taking the samples from a particular place. So the issue is that the people who are living in those surroundings, or those who will be participating in this such screening mechanism, whether they are particularly informed about what they are going through, what the analysis will be, how the findings, for example, it goes through that it states that SARS-CoV-2 is present in that particular wastewater. Okay, what will be the consequences of that, how they will be impacted, okay, whether with respect to, for example, 10 subjects are there, for with respect to 10 individuals, the public findings have been made public, okay, or conclusions have been drawn on those particular 10 individuals, their privacy and autonomy will be hampered. Why? Because all the information with respect to those particular individuals will be placed in the public domain. Everybody will be able to access it. So they may be despised by the society, they may be stigmatized by the society, even more over the whole of the area may be stigmatized, because there is always a rumors start, that is how rumors start, that in that particular area the virus has started, okay, from that particular area the infection is spreading, and the individuals living in vicinity to that particular area, what happens with respect to is they get stigmatized, okay, they get despised by the society. And when the government teams or the NGOs or other research teams go there to find the analysis, to do the analysis, more or less what happens is the individuals are not well informed about the screenings and their inclusion in the tests, and all the findings with respect to those individuals are put in the public domain, and because the information has been made public, their privacy and autonomy is hampered. See, this is our first ethical issue, that is with respect to privacy and autonomy. Second ethical issue is basically the challenges that are associated with the enhanced ability to track the diseases. See, the problem here is with respect to the historical association of infectious disease outbreaks with xenophobia. For example, take the case with respect to the diseases like malaria is, dengue is there, dysentery is there. These diseases are linked to the particular geographical areas. For example, Africa is there, or for example out of Asia is there. Whenever you will go to a developed country, okay, you will see that if you will take the name of these diseases, they will state that they spring out of Africa, they spring out of Asia. That was also what was witnessed in the COVID-2, if you specifically remember that, for example, how China was stigmatized, okay, how particular variant with respect to India was named and India was getting stigmatized, then Africa was also stigmatized. People from other countries develop xenophobia with respect to the individuals of that particular country, okay, they are excluded, they are stigmatized in the outside countries, okay. Why? Because of the association of the disease with the particular country. You can quote the example of here, that basically how China is today also despised for the outbreak of the COVID, okay, because that is from where the COVID emerged, and all over the world basically people started stigmatizing Chinese people, okay. Further, earlier restrictions before it became a global pandemic, the restrictions were placed on the Chinese individuals only. Their movement was restricted, they were not allowed to board the planes, they were not allowed to enter the countries. So this can happen with anybody. For example, I have again given another example here, is that is with respect to the out of Africa diseases there, or out of Asia diseases there, Delta variant with respect to countries like India. You can quote that example as well, that how after their rise basically the individuals in the developed countries were associating that particular disease or particular variants with respect to the particular country, and individuals from that country, they had to face the xenophobia, they had to face racism, they were excluded from participating in the public gatherings. That is the another issue. Basic thing is the association of a particular disease with a particular country, and in fact the naming of the variant or the disease with respect to the that area only. For example, Ebola virus is there, it is named after the river in Africa, and obviously the people living in vicinity to those river, they were despised. Okay, you can take out many other examples. So this historical association with the rise of a particular disease and the geographical space, it affects the community, it affects the people of that particular country, because they are excluded from the normal participation in the public society, and they have what they have to face normally is oppression, exclusion and discrimination. That you can quote here with respect to China, also with respect to COVID-19. Okay, because you can state that in your example that before it became a global pandemic, it was the Chinese people that were basically excluded from boarding the planes or allowed into the what we say entry in the country, and when it became a global pandemic, the basically the Chinese people, they were discriminated against. Okay, because the disease what we say emerged out of China. So this is our second ethical issue. First one was with respect to privacy and autonomy of the individual on whom the study is done. Second is with respect to the association of a disease with a particular geographical area. Moving forward to our next basically issue. See, despite we have what the point states here is that despite the development of the global disease surveillance system, okay, and zoonotic disease and influenza, inequalities are reflected in the distribution and availability of the tools. You must have, again I will like to quote the example, you can also quote it from COVID. Remember the case of vaccine distribution, how what inequality was there between the global north and the global south. Still till date, basically there are many African countries which have not received a single dose of vaccines, because all the vaccines that were there, they were basically developed in the global north. And you can basically also quote how in WHO India lobbied for the equitable distribution of the vaccines. Okay, and it was opposed by all the countries including the US. Even the Bill Gates went on to state that basically the development of the all the vaccines will be done in the developed countries. Okay, the distribution of the solution or the distribution of the basically what we say tools and mechanism to what we say prevent the disease, it is having inequitable distribution. How? Because most of the focus is always on the global north. Okay, and even with respect to the diseases that have not emerged, okay, the problems that we have not faced, what we are seeing is there is an over representation of viral genomes from the global north. The focus is more on to tackle the diseases that are prevalent in the developed countries, rather what can emerge in the global south or what can emerge in the low developed countries or the third world countries basically. So this is issue with respect to the inequitable. You have to remember two things in this. First is with respect to inequitable distribution of tools and mechanisms to prevent a particular disease. You can quote the example of COVID here. You can quote the example of how India lobbied in basically WHO along with other developing countries for the equitable distribution of vaccines, and how till date there are many African countries which have not received the COVID-19 vaccines, because all the production and distribution and supply chain demand is basically focused on the global north or the developed countries. Second thing to remember is that there is less less focus on the emerging diseases or the emerging infectious problems that can emerge in less developing or the third world countries. There is an over representation of the diseases from the global north. Okay, that is basically the another issue. And again next issue is with respect to face off between the individual privacy and the public health. I have quoted example here also. See, in COVID-19, there was an individual named patient 13 who was thought to be a center of large cluster of infections at a church in South Korea basically. Okay, what happened at the end was it had consequences for the privacy of individuals, and details were publicly released when she refused to cooperate or participate with the contact tracing. You must have seen with respect to COVID-19 that many individuals in India also, for example, somebody who was traveling from a foreign country, he or she was infected. How media trial was done with respect to that individual, that or particular group who was going for a social gathering, they were despised by the society that they are the carriers of the viral infections and they are infecting other individuals. Their details by the media were leaked online with respect to this is a particular individual, he or she is living in that particular area, he or she is belonging to that particular religion. Okay, and because the leaks were done and the information became public, okay, the all the basic information or the private information, it went into the public domain. Individuals were despised, they were stigmatized by the society, even by the government agencies, they were excluded from the government gatherings, restrictions were placed upon their movement. Okay, and when because of all the media trial and glare basically that was happening, when they refused to participate in the contact tracing, you must have seen there was news in the COVID-19 that many individuals from public hospitals fled because they refused to participate in the contact tracing. Why that happened was, it was highlighted that media went for the trial there, blaming them for the basically what we say carrying the viral infections and infecting the other people there, and their names and all the what we say residential details were made public by the media, and they particular individuals basically they fled from the government hospital to evade the what we say social stigmatization or discrimination or exclusion by the society towards them. So this is another issue that is basically face off between the public individual privacy and the public health. How this should be tackled, the last point is that basically if any individual is carrying a viral infection or he or she is a carrier, proper screening should be done. Okay, he or she can be put into an isolation or the quarantine facilities, and it should be ensured that media trial should not be done, his or her name should not be basically revealed to the public, so that he or she does not become a victim of the social stigma. Particularly with respect to you, another example I want to quote here is, for example, when COVID was in the earlier stages in India, okay, it not had spread to the whole of the country, the individuals who were the early infectants, okay, you must remember how they were despised by the society, how they were discriminated or excluded from the public gatherings. Okay, so that type of issues basically need to be avoided. If any individual is a carrier, even in the early stages it has not become a pandemic, he or she should be properly quarantined. Okay, the public or the private details should not be made public, and he or she should be ensured that basically his public health details will not be made basically into the private or the public domain. Sorry, this was all with respect to the ethical issues. Again, I want to repeat in nutshell. First issue is with respect to the public individual privacy and autonomy, with respect to participation in the screening of tests and the public of the conclusions made about the particular disease. Second is with respect to the inequalities you have seen here. Third is with respect to the individual face off between the individual privacy and the public health, and the most important one, the association between a particular disease and the geographical area, and how the people living in the vicinity of that particular geographical area, they are excluded, discriminated and oppressed in the society. So these are the ethical issues with respect to genome sequencing. Moving on to now the security part. What this is what we say relevant for your prelims exam. You must have read in the newspaper that India US exercise is going on. Basically the name of exercise is Vijay Prahar. It is taking place in Himachal Pradesh, Baklo area. It is a 13th edition and it is an annual exercise. The UPSC can ask you the name of the particular exercise and ask to which country it is related, okay. Or if it wants to go to the difficult level, it can ask the place where it is taking place, or what edition it is, or whether it is a annual or a biannual exercise, okay. That is all what you need to remember. The name is Vijay Prihar, taking place in Himachal Pradesh, Baklo, and then 13th edition, and it is a annual exercise. So these are all the basically weekly topics that were relevant for the society, ethics and the security part. This will be all from my side. Thank you and all the best for your future endeavors.